Support for Donnybrook is provided in part by Design Aire Heating and Cooling.
Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thank you for joining us for another Donnybrook. It's a super week. We've got a super show coming your way. But first, let's meet our panelists, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese, Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, also from the Post and STLtoday.com, Joe Holleman, and from the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid. Well, before we begin, we do want to thank local artist Taylor Marie for sharing her artwork with us. You know, we have a rotating exhibit on the mantle behind me on the Donnybrook set, and this month we thank Ms. Marie for sharing her fantastic work. And tell you what, you can learn more by following her on Instagram at TailXMarie. Simple as that, I think. I'm not on Instagram yet, so I've got to do that, Alvin, one of these days.
I'm not either.
All right, I'm going to get on Instagram and join the 21st century. I want to ask you about our Board of Aldermen in the city of St. Louis. With a little history first, it was in November of 2021 that St. Louis and the county and the Regional Sports Authority reached an agreement with the Rams and Stan Kroenke and the NFL. A settlement was given, more than $700 million. The city got $250 million as the result of that lawsuit. It was divided up in November of 2022, and people for the past 2+ years have been talking about how to spend it. Certainly on this show, we've been talking about that. And last Thursday, it was announced by Sarah that it would be decided last Friday because the Board of Aldermen was finally meeting after all these public engagement sessions and discussions. What are we going to do with the now almost $300 million? And that meeting just went bust. The president of the Board of Aldermen halted it. She accused one of her colleagues of being drunk. And then they reconvened Tuesday morning, and guess what? Fill in the blanks here, Alvin. What happened on Tuesday?
Well, it got pushed on beyond the upcoming mayoral election, which takes it to spring. Who knows where it goes from there? But I do have to share this. On the way to the studio tonight, 2 lanes coming north on Grand, and to the city department worker in the truck who pulled over in front of the second lane where those of us could not get by with the little light on, and we're all thinking, what is this guy doing? And I honked my horn as I went by him. A water main had broken. It was like the Colorado River going down to the viaduct area. And I felt bad after I'd honked my horn. So obviously we got some water problems that we need fixed. We got a lot of problems.
And how much money did they assign to fixing the city's
$40
notorious
million
water
was
mount?
supposed to go to the...
And how much went at the end of the day?
I'm getting there, Charlie. And so thus, here was a chance. Now, the original plan... the mayor favored one, Greater St. Louis Inc., downtown folks favored another. They got together. They came to a compromise. They stood together at City Hall and said, we've got to compromise, transform, act. Let's get it through. Let's get this money out. And the board just flushed that down the proverbial toilet on Friday and then backed it up on Tuesday. Listen, if we really want to be, Omaha or whatever city, you really put us on the highway to that this time. This is a mess. Everyone down there should be ashamed. The deal was there, the deal was done, and it just got...
Just to underline it, nothing happened on Tuesday. Not a penny of the settlement has been spent.
And I thought that's what Vollmer said. He said that we should be ashamed of ourselves, that we did have it. He's on his way out, that we had a golden opportunity, and that we blew it. And what is so surprising was... Sarah and I were saying last week that Pam Boyd was the one who was dropping these breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs or whatever to follow. When everybody else was kind of celebrating preemptively this success of a compromise, she was like, no, it's not really. And turns out she was absolutely right, that it was premature. But to say that, I suppose I would rather have them wait until after the election and put the $40 million toward the water projects that need $140 million. Is that
40,
what,
40.
40 was what they were going to do.
No. But I mean, what's the total? The grand
290 is the big pot.
All right,
Up
so
to 298.
okay. So, but the 40 at least is something. It is very disappointing that
Nothing's
they at
happened.
least didn't do that. But to say that, hey, well, at least we can, we can give it the old college try and regroup. If you haven't done it in 2 years, what's going to change?
Joe, you were there.
I was there for the Tuesday meeting. What we saw was political games, and expertly played on one side by Alderman Rasheed Aldrich, who took what was, and I guess she probably should have known she'd be punished for this, a logical, common sense solution proposed by Alderman Ann Schweitzer, who said, for all this talk, every proposal out there seems to have $40 million for the water department. Let's pull that out of there. Let's send that to them. And we can come back and argue again about the other $250 million. But let's get this water department some money. But that was not the game that both sides wanted to play. And so it ended up getting scuttled. And thereby, they did nothing. And at some point, they're going to have to come to the realization that you're going to have to send money to the water department, and that number should grow. It should be bigger than $40 million.
Right.
Well,
by now.
yeah, I was going to say, let's point fingers. Doesn't Megan Green get most of the blame? I mean, she's the one who, there was a deal made, and then before they could agree on it, Megan Green started fiddling.
I think it's the alderman, and I think it's the mayor. This was purposely timed to have a big announcement before the April 2025 elections, so everyone would be seen as heroes. They dragged their feet for 3 years, and they didn't do anything. And they said, we have this public engagement process, and they just eliminated whatever the people wanted. The people wanted pay raises for employees and water mains. They didn't listen to any of that. And now the mayor's going to get no benefit whatsoever, political or otherwise, from this, because she might not be the mayor when this money is actually dealt.
Well, temperamentally, I think we can all sort of, I think this raises a huge flag for those who didn't already have flags raised when it came to Megan Green in the past. But you don't, at this juncture, you don't throw a hissy and walk out and then accuse one of your colleagues of being drunk on social media so that you have to walk back, so that lawsuits are threatened. The whole thing is it is a circus.
Remember?
And this is a major metropolitan. We were a major metropolitan.
Well, remember, we reduced the size of the Board of Aldermen just recently from 28 to 14. We thought we'd be more efficient and we'd work more effectively. It's just the opposite.
Well,
I argued against that. I like
didn't.
more.
That's still a good idea. I think what happened this time was just a key failure on maybe a few aldermen's part, so it would have been a bigger mess if they were 28 because the sides would be so far apart. That's why this is so kind of rather disgusting, because you just don't even have enough people for all this turmoil. I mean, this could have been worked out. And what's the saying, like doing something like bad is not as bad as not doing anything at all? I know I just botched that, but that's really a case
Is
here.
it possible that, Bill, the alderman got cold feet because the man who has indicted and actually convicted 3 of their colleagues, Hal Goldsmith, the assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri, who is the #1 white-collar prosecutor, he's the public corruption attorney who looks for problems, he was seated for some reason in the audience watching the proceedings. And when Mark Maxwell at Channel 5 said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, I'm bored. Follow-up question, what are you doing here? I can't comment. So do you think that the aldermen were like, I'm not going to do anything with that guy sitting over there?
Well, I was an alderman. That's what I would think. I mean, Hal Goldsmith is not known for like great humor. I mean, Hal Goldsmith is known for like, if you see him go, "Hey, Hal, what's up?" You know I don't talk about things. Right. I mean, no matter where you see him, I mean, he's not a jovial, hail, well-met sort of fellow. And if I was an alderman and saw him sitting there, I would think, it's odd that the prosecutor would be here, because I would think that if you're going to be looking to prosecute these people, you'd have somebody they don't know sitting there taking notes, and one of Hal's assistants or something.
Right.
But so I found it odd that a high-profile guy like Hal Goldsmith would be there. But it would give me the chills if I were an alderman.
I don't know if I have, over the years that I've been at the Post, covered the Board of Aldermen on and off a number of times. And they don't need the presence of a Hal Goldsmith to act illogically and inefficiently. They can do that with an empty chamber. Yeah. So I'm not willing to say that it was because Hal was there that they failed to do something productive for the city. They're quite capable of doing that all by their lonesome.
And I'm not suggesting that that's why.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. I thought it was theater. I thought it was great.
But there are some contested races in the 1st and 3rd and 5th and I think 7th or 9th wards.
It's the odd.
All the odd ones are up.
Okay, so Goldsmith's sitting there. You're a member of the public. What are the optics? Oh, there's trouble here in Denmark.
Well, maybe,
not
but
necessarily.
Wait a minute. The FBI director could come sit in here and watch the show. I'm not doing anything illegal, so why do I care that this person is sitting there?
If there were white-collar investigators watching us,
yeah.
you have some
Wait a minute.
concern?
If you have nothing to hide, what are you worried about?
I think we're trying to.
Right.
I mean, if I'm in Congress,
they can indict you for eating a ham sandwich.
I think we're trying to argue an unknown here. We have no reason why he's been here. I mean, the bottom line is if you wanted to impress a federal prosecutor, do the one thing that made eminent good government sense. Send $40 million to the water department.
Here's a guy who admits, he told Gloria Lloyd this in front of an audience, that he actually reads campaign finance contribution reports of local political candidates, and then he sees if they get contracts.
Yeah.
So, people are probably thinking, oh my God, who gave me money?
Who gave me money?
What am I going to do?
Wait, the man's doing his job?
No, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that's how he's overlooking people like Steve Stanger, John Carlos Mohammed, Reid, Jeffrey Boyd, and now Brandon Bosley.
He might just be a concerned, interested citizen. Maybe he had
give me a break. There's no such thing.
Yes, there actually is.
Name one other.
Well, I don't think
He's
I don't
Tom
think
Sullivan. He's
by the way,
he's the new Tom Sullivan.
Hold it, Charlie. You're making it sound like he's actually doing this. His staff is doing that.
you don't know
He
that.
was there himself.
So what? But,
well, there was also the possibility
getting
that this was going to be the best free show
Exactly.
in the city.
Well, maybe he missed it by one day.
I think we can.
Okay.
Sarah said, get your popcorn.
All right. Okay. Joe, I want to ask you about a contract that was just given, or actually they're talking about giving a contract for digital literacy training, $800,000 federal dollars to a company that has never done digital literacy training. Sure. At the same time, there's a report out of St. Louis Magazine that follows up on one Arnold Britt. Remember him? He was the firefighter that you wrote 10 times about. He's the guy who responded to an accident and actually stole a credit card of one of the accident victims and then used it numerous times. He was convicted, and now he's working for the city's building department.
I think what it is, I understand that, and since we all, to some extent or another, believe in the church of second chances, I am not saying that Mr. Britt should never have a job. I'm not even saying that Mr. Ray won't do a fine job at what he's doing. I think the bigger issue here is that apparently politics, city politics specifically, can't get past political considerations to see how things look to the average citizen when the person with no experience also has these political connections, where a person who pleaded guilty to stealing money from an accident victim in which numerous people were killed, then you hire him into the building division, which is already under fire.
Right.
The optics of that, when you want to talk about optics, the optics of that are horrible. And so it's not a question of Mr. Ray or Mr. Britt. It's what is the city thinking when they do these sort of things? Do they care what the public thinks about their credibility? And apparently not.
And Britt, in my opinion, he's in a land by himself. I mean, he is an outlier. That is grave robbing. That should have set off bells, whistles. I'm like you. He's entitled to get a job, but for the city, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
And he's an inspector for the building.
And the building. I mean, they've got this. Joe said they've got their own problems.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
I was going to say that people could tolerate all this corruption, having grown up in Chicago. People can tolerate this as long as the city works. If everything is getting done on time, people look at these hires and they kind of chuckle. But this city is not working well, and so everything is magnified.
I was going to say the same thing basically you did, Wendy. I've said, this guy is toxic. He's in the heliosphere.
Yeah,
all right?
that's a great Robert.
The digital training, I guess if you read through the story that this business or gentleman had done some things for Better Family Life and some others where I guess he had accomplished some digital training. Was he the best person on the bid and all that? I don't know, but there was some remnant of maybe he qualified for what the contract was for. But Britt, the firefighter, if I owned a business and this gentleman came in to inspect something in my business, my first inclination would be to welcome him so he didn't fail me. But I'd be thinking, you need to get out.
How about all
That's
the
what
other
you need
people
to
who
do.
work in the building department? I mean, they are already, as we said, under fire, under investigation.
Yeah, that's another,
Is that, do they know that they're just going down and this was a way to get him? This is not well placed.
To underscore Bill's point, too, and I think it's an excellent point.
Thank you, Joe.
Because I think what the problem is, that's what the problem with the bill for the Rams money. Everybody agreed it was, okay, North Side, which has been historically ignored, deserves some money. Downtown deserves some money. The water department. But then it's college programs. Then it's child care.
Daycare, yeah.
And people are just going, the city can't do the basics, okay? You're not picking up the garbage. You're not fixing the streets. And now especially, you're not getting the snow plowed and you're not even you're not even holding the director of the streets department responsible. Why do I think that you are good fosters of college education and daycare when you can't do the basic things? When people buy in to the progressive model, they're not saying give up the basics.
And that's what Bill was saying about Mayor Jones and her travel expenses and all of that. That if the city's running seamlessly, if the streets are cleared, if the garbage is picked up, then that's one thing. People don't care as much. But you add it all up, and there is that cumulative effect.
Well, Bill, let me ask you about taxes. There's a measure in Jefferson City to lower the income tax, which is now close to 5%, between 4.5–5% for the highest marginal tax rate. But there's a proposal, to bring it down eventually to 0, like some other states that include Tennessee, Washington, Florida, Texas. But to make it revenue neutral, so the state isn't losing money, they're talking about raising taxes on services like legal fees, real estate transactions, dry cleaning, haircuts. What do you think about that?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, the government needs money. Like my son lives in Texas, and they might not have income tax, but then they have higher real estate taxes. You have to get the money. And for the governor, he wants to be able to say, I'm the man who stopped income tax. Well, yes, but you have to do something else to get the money. And income tax, at least, you're taking it from people who have some money. When you have a sales tax, or tax on goods and services, even the poor people have to pay more for it. So I think it's a terrible idea to do away with the state income tax.
But he's already out there. He's the man who fights for it. So I think in this age of executive orders where we know that there are going to be all sorts of court challenges, but you've got the initial PR bump. And I think, sadly, that's kind of where we are. The devil's in the details. We're not going to see the sausage being made, if you will.
It's like Bill Igo wanting to cut personal property tax.
Yeah.
And you think, well, that's a great idea, but how do you make that up?
Well, what if you, what's our sports gambling tax? Actually, that's decided by state constitution, so I don't think we can ever change that, but I think it's 13%.
I was going to say, I think it's 13.
Yeah, some states are 30.
Right.
Our cigarette tax is quite low. Our gasoline tax is quite low. I think that's low-hanging fruit if you want to raise some money.
I agree. I would think that this idea won't fly because of that real estate increase on the transaction, because that's, that's beyond us as far as buying pieces of land and property that cost millions of dollars. Those people will wave their hand and say, like, no, you got to go someplace else to get that money.
Right.
All right. So that's what will sink this plan. And as the others have said, it's going to come from someplace. I mean, we can't just, it's going to blow a hole in the budget. What are you going to do? Come on.
But the Rex Sinkfield theory is you lower the state income tax because people will move, and they'll move to Texas or Tennessee or Florida, but you can't move property. So you increase the property tax, and you're more likely to get at least rich people move into your state. You know, we know, Alvin, for example, you know there are people who spend 6 months in a day in Florida because there's no there's no state income tax, and there's no tax on your pension, your distribution from your 401k.
What else is there? There's an ocean and 75 degrees every day, too, Charlie. We ain't got even one of them.
No,
come on.
We do not.
I have a novel idea as to where you could make these tax cuts work if you then also cut government spending. Then you wouldn't need so much. But they don't seem to want to do that. So what they do is just change the taxes around.
It's a shell game.
Right.
It's just a shell game.
Cut spending, then you don't need the higher
And
taxes.
they got money to keep the Royals and the Chiefs in Missouri.
Yeah.
Now, he's out stumping for that, too.
Well, let me ask you for that. A couple more topics before we break for this week, and then, of course, there's last call. I want to ask you, Alvin, when you go around town, do you see a lot of Chiefs fans getting ready for Sunday's game?
Oh, yeah, especially like 2 weeks ago for the championship. Like just everywhere you went, it was Chiefs stuff. And restaurants, even here, are, bracing for all the carryouts and wings and all that. So it's a real thing. I mean, that red wave got of shifting across the state.
But considering the Chiefs owner voted to move our NFL franchise to L.A., isn't that kind of like a modern version of Stockholm Syndrome?
Well, not to bring any kind of national thing to it, but there are some things going on that people voted for the person that's doing that are in direct opposition to what need be done, like maybe here in Missouri. So same thing. Yeah, he voted that way, but we love the Chiefs. So
Well, people love football.
And football. That's a better way. That's a better way of putting it.
People
Wendy.
love football. It is the NFL is the Death Star. It will always be the Death Star. It gobbles up Bob Mayhall, who's a friend of mine, and he posted something on Facebook about Conrad Dobler and the CTE, and he said, "Enjoy your Super Bowl." And it's true. We know all that unpleasant stuff, but man, we love football. Football's such a great game.
And we like the commercials too on Super Sunday. The CEO of AB InBev, his name is Brennan Wentworth, I think.
He's a Marine.
He's a Marine.
Yep.
Also he's in Harvard MBA too. Is he a smart guy? I don't know. He wants to turn the word domestic beer into American beer. Instead of calling our, Busch Light, Michelob domestic, he'll call it American. What do you think?
I think they've lost a cataclysmic share of their market with Bud Light and last year's Dylan Mulvaney, that blip, and people aren't coming back. And so this is, there's a new sheriff in town. I never thought in a million years that Target out of Minnesota would rescind its DEI policy. But they have. There's a big lawsuit involved. But it's just, politics makes strange bedfellows. And I do think that they're pandering. They're trying to get that market share back, but that's the American way. That's business.
Yeah, I mean, it's shameful. And by the way, Costco, JP Morgan Chase, a lot of others have said, no, we're not backing off our DEI plan. So if you want to support them, do. But, I mean, this is just kind of like, really? People are going to buy your beer now because you say it's American beer instead of domestic.
Well, dropping domestic from beers makes it sound like if you beat your wife, you're going to be charged with American abuse. No more domestic abuse. Domestic is a word that is gone.
Pardon me for being slightly patriotic, but what's wrong with the word American?
Charlie, I'm with you. Charlie, I'm with you.
Timing.
I don't get what the big deal's about. And okay, now the charge that we're pandering. It's advertising. Advertising is pandering.
Yes.
So the idea that we're going to call it American beer. Well, your market share is dwindling. You need to do something. So it's good business. But I mean, this idea that I'm supposed to be offended by it being called domestic or American, I don't care.
We're just pointing out the obvious. And frankly, when somebody is on vacation and they're sitting next to the Gulf of America and they want to have a beer, then why not have an American beer?
Here's
I'm going to keep calling it Gulf of Mexico.
My concern is this, that the word American is now being used to say, like, okay, I'm going to discriminate, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because that's American. This is America. And let's just watch where we're going this. It's all good if we call it American. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I will say, if America has good craft beer or good beer, why not, if you've got it, flaunt it.
It's not a pejorative. I mean, we're not saying it's not a pejorative. I mean,
we have used a variety of emotions to sell a variety of products over the year, and it's all pandering.
But is it a pejorative if you call it Missouri wine?
Is it a Missouri wine? I don't care.
Our wine experts.
I've had to.
Does it taste good?
Oh, have you? Okay.
Does it taste good? Then I don't care what you call it.
Well, if you get your wine from California or Missouri or Oregon or something, and somebody says, I want a domestic wine, I don't think to myself, well, that's not right.
On that note, we're going to go to the old mailbag and see what people had to say about last week's show. Paula Miller of Chesterfield wrote, regarding the front yard raised garden in Shrewsbury, can I prohibit trampolines and ugly shutters? Thank you, Paula. We also heard from Jenny Fagan of Webster Groves, the tree hugger. Shame on Wendy for suggesting the Shrewsbury residents cut down trees to move their garden. If the adjacent and across-the-street neighbors sign an affidavit acknowledging their support, let them garden. That from Kevin Walters of St. Charles. Kimberly Hayes of St. Louis wrote, a more valid discussion is the harm to neighbors and nature that's caused by outdoor roaming house cats. You can write us, care of 9PBS, 3655 Olive Street. Don't forget those emails, Donnybrook at 9pbs.org. On social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. And you can call the 9 line, 314-512-9094, and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. Also, check out our 9PBS YouTube presentation every week. More topics we don't get to in the first half hour. This week, KDHX and its future. Thanks again to Taylor Marie for sharing artwork that decorates our set this week. And thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great week. See you in 7.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.